Join our knowledgeable hosts as they dive into the captivating universe of comic books, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. Get ready for vibrant discussions and a shared enthusiasm for all things superhero and beyond. A comic podcast straight from the panels. This is Beyond the Capes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is returning comic book creator Michael Schwartz. We had talked to him originally when Armored was just coming out. We are now in the penultimate issue, getting ready. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Really appreciate you having me back on. I think it's been a year, hasn't it?
It has. Yes.
Yeah.
When I was going through our Spotify Wrapped and I was looking at our episodes, you have done a insane amount of work in this year, because I mean, you've essentially dropped. I mean, as we're going to talk about your project here, we are coming up to the kind of the conclusion of it with these five issues. That's a lot to put out in almost a year's work.
Yeah, because when I talked to you, we had just wrapped the Kickstarter for issue 1 and 2. And so you were one of the first people to read the book. Like, there were not many people who had read it even. Like, we had, I think, 300 backers, maybe a few more. And they hadn't even read it yet. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was really early days. And you were one of the first people to read it. There was a few guys like you, Bada Boom Podcast, and I think like no Good Comics had read it, but that was it. It was like early days. You were one of the first supporters of the book, man. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. Which is crazy because I mean, like, if you go now, I know it's a very humble story for you. You're a big comic book fan. This was a fun project as you moved from, screenwriting to this. You mentioned now Armored and like your name in Clover Media, like you blown up in this year, whether you know that or not. Your name and what you've done is it's in a lot of places.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. I still don't know if people know about the book. That's the thing. Like, it is interesting because issue 1, for instance, it sold out at Diamond, but there are multiple distribution. There's Diamond and then there's Lunar. Lunar still had, I think it was a few hundred, but because we got so many reorders at Diamond, we had to ship some of issue 1 over to 2. So it felt like, like there's a bunch of people that are interested in issue 1, and then sales have been good on issue 2 and 3, but then issue 4 is sold out completely. Like, we are now sold out at both places. So it's been weird because I'm like, who are all these people reading it? I don't know. I guess it's worked me like talking it up to people, and I don't know. I'm just happy to hear that other people are reading it, that people I don't even know,
Definitely. I think one of the best things about your comic specifically, besides the story, which we'll get into a little bit here, was your covers. And I know we had talked your first issue, you got amazing artists to do your covers. And I feel like a lot of issues, we get issue 1, Thundercats is one that I always bring back as an example. I think it was 42 number 1 variant covers with some very impressive artists. You, every issue, just kept on hitting it right on the nail. And what's more impressive, and having gotten to see a couple of the issues as we get released and before, they got delicious, as I said before, deliciously dark. Like, the amount of artwork that went into them and how they correspond to the story was amazing. Did you kind of intend to kind of do that progression? Because I feel like first issue, a little whimsical, kind of bringing everyone in, and then like a movie as we progress. That issue 5 cover is just insane, and it goes along with the story.
Yeah. With issue 1, like, I think it was smart of Clover because we had 4 variant covers for issue 1. And then when it came time to direct market, it was like, okay, what are the direct market covers? And I think it was smart of them. Nick Patera is definitely a comic artist that people know because of like Axe Wielder John and Jonathan Hickman's Manhattan Projects, and but
Yeah.
it gives a very kid friendly tone to it, which I think is good because I think I see a lot of adults. Like I'll do signings, and I'll always expect adults to pick up like a Jay Lee cover, but then they go for the Nick, right? They
Yeah.
like the whimsy of it, the fun of it, the bright colors. And then sometimes I expect kids to be like, oh, they're going to pick up the Nick Patera cover too, but then they'll go for the Jay Lee. So I think it was smart where Clover was like, well, let's do Nick Patera's as the main cover, and then for the serious collector, they can get
Yeah.
the Jay Lee foil cover. And I think that was really smart. And then when I do signings, I do have non-foil versions of like the Jay Lee, so people can pick either one and not have to spend a bit more for the foil. Um, but it is an interesting choice because I think this book, I did not realize I was doing it, but it really is something that caters both to young adults and adults. Like
Yeah.
right now, my primary audience is adults, but the more signings I do, the more I have kids picking it up because they find out I wrote No Malone or an R.L. Stine movie. And there's a lot of kids that have seen No Malone, man. I'm always surprised by how many kids have seen that movie. The power of Netflix, you know?
Yes. And no, I mean, it works out. As growing up in the Goosebumps era and being a Goosebumps child and a Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark child, and I think we talked about this before, that was a critical, that 9 to 13, getting into horror. That was a critical part especially for a lot of us 90s kids.
Oh,
That
yeah.
imprint, everyone knows the Crypt Keeper growing up. That was just that's a big thing. And I think that's something that your book kind of hit that we needed. I mean, obviously we have EC Comics finally coming back, which is great because that is the origins of how kind of we got into this. But yours was, like I said, was the standout because we hadn't really either. People go too dark or they just go too comedy, and yours was a nice blend. I think it really owes to the character, which was impressive because you sent me issue 4 and 5, and your ghost mentor, despite the situation and how dire it can be, he can still crack off a joke in the middle of the most serious event in that book, which is impressive.
That's good. I'm glad you enjoy that. Yeah, Sir William is a goofball for sure. Even during the worst points in his life. But yeah, even kind of going back to what you said about the covers, like as we progress through the series, the stakes are risen. Like I wanted to raise the stakes, but also keep the story somewhat contained. Like I do find sometimes comics can just go like, oh, let's just throw everything into the last issue. This could be the last one. I don't want issue 5 isn't the last one. I've already done issue 6 is in the can. So it's definitely not the last one. But I also I wanted to go dark. Like we had to complete this story.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a complete story while still keeping it open for a completely new story for the next arc. And when it came to the covers, the artists that did the covers were reading it. They weren't just providing covers and looking at pages. They were reading it. And so when Trevor read it, he gave me a few options, and this one was just, he does really, really scary artwork. And that when I saw like a thumbnail sketch of that cover, I was like, that is pure Trevor Henderson and super scary looking and fits perfectly for the finale. So that's that's how it happened. And then just David Mack providing that cover. I don't know. It tonally fits as well. Like it's beautiful, but it also is like it's kind of foreshadowing, right? What could happen to the main character, to Sir William, everything. It just hit the nail on the head. And then Becky, she was just inspired by the opening of issue 3, and that's where she came up with her cover.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think overall it all fits. How does it feel? I mean, to complete the arc. I mean, obviously everyone sets out to do an issue 1. We see a lot of indie creators kind of come and go from the scene and either get discouraged or get overwhelmed. And sometimes issue 1 is the first and last for them. You have now completed a first arc, which that puts you in a top tier because it is really hard to keep going and keep in this business, to keep doing the signings and keep pushing and trying to not let the work suck the passion out of it for you, which can be daunting in this industry.
I've been very fortunate that the feedback has been so good. I imagine, like, I think I'd still want to continue telling the story, but like the response has been so strong that it really just it fuels my creativity for the world I've created. It makes me want to continue doing it, even though we're not talking absolute Batman numbers or anything here, but enough people are into it that it makes me want to continue telling the story for sure. So, but it does feel surreal, to even have like these artists who have provided these covers. Like some days I'm like, what? I have a Jay Lee cover, a David Mack cover. It doesn't feel real sometimes. Yeah.
Yep. Well, crazy enough. So obviously we have 5 issues. This is our first arc being done. And I think we talked a little bit about this on the last episode, and we said, this is a story that does have quite a few points that you haven't even kind of really scratched the surface on. You were just focusing on one main narrative right now to branch off. Now that you have arc 1 done and we are working on what's next, has those plans changed any, or have you thought about maybe going back and you're like, you know what, now that I have officially ended this arc, I may want to revise the story just a bit because I think I can do something a little different that might give a little bit more nuance to the story?
Well, that's an interesting question. I wouldn't say the story has changed. I would say overall for the next, like, depending on the success of the hardcover, like depending on the success of the graphic novel version of this.
Yeah.
If it's very successful, I would like to do, oh my goodness, upwards of like 10 arcs, right? 10 5-issue arcs. That would be the dream. But if that doesn't happen and it just stays kind of like the small little indie book that sells good numbers just to continue doing a few, I would do it in I would probably complete the whole story in 3 more arcs, even though I have tons of story to tell.
Yeah.
I have 3 arcs kind of planned out where it could end the series. It would be, to me, it would feel too small, but it is what it is. But with that said, arc 2 is locked in. Like that, the issue 6 to 10, that story I've had since writing issue 2. Like I knew what the next story would be. And I tell a lot of people this, you're one of the few, is the final page of issue 5 introduces a new character, and that character actually appears in issue 1. And my daughter read the series, and I told her that. And she was like, what? Who's the character? And I said, go back, see if you can figure it out. So I always knew that was the way this arc ended, and that character comes into the second story. But with that said, there are details that have changed. Like even providing Ishmael with the script for issue 6, he threw something out at me, and he was just like, can this new, there's another new character that comes in issue 6, and he says, oh, can he be in a wheelchair? And I was like, oh man, that's so good, right? Like now Ishmael and I have a bit more synergy where we're kind of like, he's able to help co-create a bit, and that in particular was really cool epiphany when he said that. Like just he wanted to design the character in a wheelchair, and I was like, that gives me so much story to use too. And then on top of that, even when Jay provided his cover, it actually fed ideas into the second arc. Strangely enough, as weird as it is, like you'll see Sir William and he's not fully formed in the Jay Lee cover, and that kind of plays a role in the second arc too. So little details changed, but the overall story hasn't.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, especially once you kind of get going. I mean, an object in motion stays in motion. It's a lot easier to kind of start picking things like, okay, well, I really hated writing this maybe in the beginning, but I had to get my story down, and now you're like, you know what? I really want to keep doing it this way because it does work better for the story. Which, is not a bad thing. Now, synergy, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, because we've talked about it before. Obviously, you're a big fan, like myself, of Mr. Geoff Johns and what he's done with Ghost Machine and everything. And when we had Jason Fabik on the show, he said it's not even like a thought, like when he, invites you over to come do this, because we have such a chemistry. And now you have that person as well. How does that feel, having a partnership where, I can now officially write a page, and I wouldn't say you don't have to do like any of the work, but you could probably put more minimal artistic style or scene dressing or something like that, because he's going to pick up on what, like, your style of writing and what exactly it needs.
Yeah, I would definitely say I probably write the same amount, but I am like, when pages come in, there's no notes now. Like, I don't bother. Like, if I see, he did 5 panels instead of 6, I'm like, that makes the most sense. That's also me learning, right? Like, me learning not only that I have to trust his instincts, but that his instincts are right. Like, most of the time they're right. And there's a reason I have an editor to help with to catch anything that me and Ishmael may not see, right? And that editor is Chris Stevens, and he's been invaluable to this project and working with me and Ishmael on it. But yeah, that synergy is great. And we've been brainstorming a whole new series altogether. And he's actually done 6 pages of it already, just as something for us to pitch in the new year. Just a side project.
Yeah, it's always fun to do that. You never know when those go.
Exactly. And obviously,
like I said, you guys got great.
Yeah, I actually haven't told anybody about that side project, so that's really funny.
Breaking.
Yeah, there you go.
I think one of the best things, as we get ready to promote this last story, and it's right there behind you in your background for everyone watching this video, is the Wizard half zine. For everyone listening that doesn't know what Wizard conventions were, it used to be the only way, the only Comic-Con really out there, the only way to go and meet people in kind of a centralized location to go buy comics and meet creators. And they would always put out their special half issue where they would introduce a few new things, do like a little bio background, give some comic books. Where did that come from? Like, the need to want to bring that back? I'm assuming nostalgia, because I love anything Wizard.
Yeah. So I think shortly after you and I probably talked on your podcast, I actually joined as a co-host to a podcast called Wizards, the Podcast Guide to Comics, where we do deep dives into Wizard magazines. So, 2 guys started it, Adam Pope and Michael Canetti started it 5 years ago, and Michael left, and so I joined. They needed another Michael to fill the spot, so that was me. I had been a guest co-host. Yeah, I had been a guest co-host in the past, so they asked me to come on board. I joined, and then a few episodes in, they came to me and said, "Hey, what if we did like an old half issue? We're all huge fans of Wizard magazine, and we've been kind of reliving the magazine for 5 years now. And like, anytime I find a half issue, I have to buy it. But it was their idea, and they were like, "Are you open to it? Is Clover open to it?" And Clover was all for it. They're like, "Go for it, do it." And so they've kind of been leading the charge. It has a brand new Armored story in it, so it's a lot like the old Wizard half issues. And it also has just a ton of bonus features. Like, for Armored, there's behind the scenes materials from Ishmael. We do a 90s homage cover. You'll see once it's fully revealed that we are homaging a pretty popular 90s comic. And
awesome.
Yeah, I think people are really going to dig the cover when they see the full reveal. It's pretty awesome. But also, the thing that's really cool about the book is it's actually a flip book. So when you flip the book over, there's another cover on the back that homages Wizard magazine, like an old copy of Wizard. But also there's articles that Adam has written about half issues and the history of half issues, and he's interviewed a bunch of old Wizard magazine staffers about it, and it's like a history on it. So you get a little history, you get a guidebook to collecting them. Yeah, it's just a cool package overall. It's for the Wizard fan, it's for the Armored fan, and it's for both, really.
Awesome. Now with this project too, I'm assuming this is a great spot for everyone listening. Like if they maybe saw Armored, or pull this were already too heavy, they wanted to get it, they didn't. I'm assuming obviously this is where we can start playing catch up with kind of what you've put out already.
Oh, absolutely. The first page, basically, Ishmael painted this gorgeous full page spread, and it basically tells the story of Armored 1 through 5. And so you'll be able to catch up really quick. Within one page, you'll be caught up, and then it's just a cool little story with a brand new monster. And then for anybody that's been reading Armored, the final page is like 3 flashbacks to Sir William's time, and it gives you a peek into the stories we're going to be telling and hints at some of the secrets behind the armor.
I know, we can't wait for that. It's going to be a great project. Like I said, I've already read obviously issue 4 and 5. How did it feel writing that final battle? Because that was my favorite part for sure. Everything about the story was good, but that part was just so creepy, so good. And it showed a lot of character growth, which is important. You always want to see the main character kind of take something away from it. But and I won't say who came back or who's in there. For those of you who haven't read it, you need to go catch up. It reminded me a lot of The Good Son, with Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin. Just an evil kid. It was fantastic.
That's such a great comparison. It's one I was doing an interview yesterday, and I love the comparisons people bring up, because there's always a new one, and that's the first time anyone's brought up The Good Son, and I love that comparison. That was one of those movies I watched a lot as a kid and saw the trailer all the time.
Yep.
If
that's if anyone hasn't seen it, traumatizing.
What was the thing Macaulay Culkin would say to Elijah Wood's character? It was like, "If I drop you, do you think you could fly?"
Yes, and that was before he dropped the fake pumpkin man into actual freeway and caused an accident. It was a terrifying movie. Macaulay Culkin, if we ever want to see range, he was gonna be a good actor. That was good, because that kid was 12 at the time, off of Home Alone, and was the most darkest, evilest character. Such a good movie.
Yeah, yeah. I can see the similarities here. That's really funny. What was your question? I don't even remember now. I just want to go watch The Good Son.
Yeah. Well, all right. We just need to turn this off, and we need to go stream it. What was it like? You read in the story, you're putting issue after issue out, and now we have it. This is kind of the final battle. Was it hard? Because almost to kind of pace it out, because you had been working so hard for this ending, and now you finally get the coup de grace. This is going to be how do I plan it out? Do I make the last fight? Do I go Dragon Ball Z? Do I really carry this thing out and I make it really long, or do I kind of short, sweet, but over the top?
Yeah, honestly, it was hard, because I knew how many pages I had to work with. I knew I couldn't go beyond 30.
Yeah.
That's just, we're getting to be too many. Most Marvel books and stuff, they're 22 pages, right? And so even 30, I'm really pushing it with an indie book here. And so it's the same amount of pages as the first issue. So issue 1 is 30 pages.
Yep.
And then the other 3 issues in between are 26 pages. with some bonus material in the back. And then issue 5 is 30. But even with that 30, I felt like I wanted more. Like I was like, oh, I want to have even more pages. So I had to show a bit of restraint. And I also didn't want to make, like, I wanted to make it a really cool battle, but I wanted the battle to not be so big that, like, by the time you get to like issue 15 or whatever, it'd be like, well, we kind of saw a battle this big, you know. It had to be like appropriate for the story we told. And so I just, you know, I just was like, this is how many pages it's going to be. And I wrote it, and I just knew Ishmael was going to nail it. By that point, I was like, he's got this. And he went above and beyond. Like the lighting he does in those panels is so cool. Like, you know what I'm talking about because you've read it, but it's hard to explain because it's like the glow that's happening on Andy and the glow that's happening from the villain. It just, even I'm in awe of it, of what Ishmael did with those pages. But yeah, being able to write that, it was intimidating. It was also so much fun. And it was also just like great to finally get it out on the page and to finally see it, because that was what I had seen while I was writing issue 1. I was like, I know we're going here. I didn't know how many issues when I was writing issue 1, but I knew that I wanted to get to that place in the final issue.
Yeah, no, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Because not only was the shadowing and like the lighting, which really sets a good dark scene, what I really liked the most, besides pacing, which is always a big one for me, is good lettering. And I love when a villain, either possessed or otherworldly or type of that, has a different color, the font's a little bit off because they're not exactly that person. That is the best because it really dictates what you're dealing with. I don't know if that was, they came up to you with that and be like, hey, are you okay with this kind of lettering, or you just kind of saw and you're like, you know what, this is fantastic?
So that is all Farron Delgado. He is a master. I'm surprised he's not been like poached by like Marvel or anybody. That I have to give him complete credit. Like I'll put little notes, like, you know, but nothing compared to what he provides. The lettering, he should win awards for the lettering he does on all the books I've seen him do. Like he's awesome. Like he should be a household name when it comes to lettering. Like I you know, this is something, you know, we can talk about later or whatever, but like I've been working on a new book with my wife, and Farron's the letterer on that. And he's doing something on that book I've never seen done before, where I was just like, it was so cool when he first gave us a sample for us to look at. And I was just like, this guy needs to win awards. I don't know how he hasn't won an Eisner yet. Honestly, like, I'm glad you noticed it. You know, I showed.
This could be it. Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? If it only wins one award and it's for lettering, that would be incredible. Farron deserves it. But I handed a copy of the book to David. What's his last name? Who writes Space Ghost? Oh my God, David Pepos.
Oh yes.
Yeah, am I saying his
it starts
name?
with a P.
Yes. Okay, I handed it to him at
I think so.
I handed it to him at New York Comic Con, and he opened it up, and his first thing was, "Kudos to your letterer. This is awesome lettering." So like even he was impressed by it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, lettering sets a good comic book. And as I tell most people, especially with myself and other collectors, when we get to this point and we're making a podcast, it's no longer about necessarily reading a new story per se. I mean, I do want to read something that's interesting, but I become a lot more enamored with, ooh, did he do this by pencil stroke? Was this digital? How does the lettering go? What's the spacing between it? I think that's where you watch a comic book collector as you morph. If you don't get trapped in the trying to keep up with the latest storyline, you really start to appreciate the art and the process. And I feel like that's how we get to a comic book podcast, is you're ready now to dive into that. Lettering was phenomenal throughout the series.
Yeah, I'm happy you've noticed it. That honestly makes me so happy, and I will make sure Farron knows.
Perfect. Well, what it leads us into our next question, because I was going to say, now that you have this under your belt, we have a little side project, and now you're writing a new book with your wife. How has that helped kind of jumpstart the process? Because I know you might still feel kind of newer to the scene, but you have, like I said, you have a substantial now amount of experience under your belt to definitely catapult and maybe kind of fine tune the process that you had to learn the hard way, maybe early on, and now you can kind of breeze through these parts. Has that made it easier?
Yeah, it definitely has helped. Like now knowing the process, what I find interesting is like we're working with a different artist. We're working with an Italian artist named Gaia Cardinali, and her artwork is beautiful. Like her coloring is so gorgeous, and but the one thing that's interesting is getting that rhythm. It's just like Ishmael. It takes like 30
Yeah.
to 50 pages to get that rhythm to see her pages come in, and I'm sure her getting used to what we like and us getting used to what she provides. And yeah, it's still a learning process. I would definitely say I'm going to continue learning the more I do it. And
Yeah.
I love it. I just want to keep writing comics, honestly. I think it's so much fun.
Oh, definitely. What's it like now, kind of bringing your family into the fold too, and having another kind of a co-writer and doing a joint story?
Well, this story is a story we came up with years and years ago, and it was just about finding the right medium to tell the story in. And then,
Yeah.
after Armored, it was like, well, why don't we tell this as a graphic novel or a single issue series? And it was just like a no brainer. It was like, oh my God, I was staring this in the face this whole time. Like we never even wrote a script, but we knew the story. It was something we talked about. And in a lot of ways, it's a story I feel like it makes sense to be told with a partner. It's hard to explain without revealing too much, but I'll have to come back once
Yeah.
once some of the stuff is out. But
Perfect.
it when you see it, the material is meant. I feel like it's even stronger having written it with my wife. Like it really has been a
Yeah.
lot of fun. We used to write together years ago. We'd come up with like TV show ideas and pitch them up here in Canada. And so to get back and working together was really, really fun.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And a lot of people have said it. Matt Kint, who's on the show, who did a comic book with his mom, Margie Kint, who, was a lot of his inspiration growing up and whatnot. They did Guilted Frame. If you haven't seen it, really fun read. But he said it's different when you have a co-writer. You're like, oh yeah, I know their work. I did Superman, he did Batman. We're gonna collab. With having someone that like lives in the house with you or helped raise you writing a story, definitely it has to feel nice. Like you don't have to explain your nuances because, obviously your writing partner is married to you, so you kind of already know a lot about each other and kind of what the styles are.
Yeah, and we know what our strengths are for sure. Like, yeah, definitely. Just leaning on each other at the appropriate points within the story or within, when the artwork comes in, just something I may not see that she'll pick up or something I see that she doesn't pick up. Like that's really, really beneficial in having a writing partner as well.
Definitely. Now we won't pry too much into it because again, issue 5, everyone, you need to go out and read it.
Yes.
It's that last page that really gets me, and I think I have to know or have some form of acknowledgement. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit after, as soon as this thing is ended. The person that appears on the page also seems to be enchanted by something that looks of a different time period and or region. Either I am reading too much into that, that is exactly what you had intended. Am I even close? Maybe. I will take a maybe.
You're on the nose for most of it. It's roughly the same time period. Ooh. Although we take a lot of license with like with the design of these costumes, like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be fantastical. Like, when Ishmael first designed the suit of armor, I think it was a lot smaller. It was like this tiny little kid's armor suit, and it was very Spanish influenced. He lives in Spain, right? So you may even notice that throughout the
Yeah,
book there
that
may
makes
be
sense.
some Spanish influences, but but the big thing was, this is fantasy. It doesn't have to be accurate to any time period, and that's like this new
Correct.
character. You're going to see some historical inaccuracies, many historical inaccuracies, and that's actually part of the story too, right? Like, if you see in issue 3, they're taking a train into a city. It eventually became London. It's kind of like a London-esque place they're going, and Sir William says something like, "Oh, and he has this crazy. I came up with this crazy creature's name. It's like some worm or something he fought back in the 13th or 14th century," and so it is fantastical. Like, his time period isn't necessarily what happened, or maybe it was, or maybe it was, but there's a reason why they call it the Dark Ages, right? Like, Armored's filling in what the Dark Ages were.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I really wanted to ask, especially now we're on the topic of with the last issues, it's a great arc. Obviously, you have more story to tell. Like, it's going to be a great story as we keep moving on, because we have so much of Sir William's past that we have to fill in, and I think that's one of the biggest mysteries of the whole story. You could look at why the armor chose our character, why we moved on to that. I think the biggest mystery is why Sir William can't remember his past. Obviously, that's kind of the bigger plot point that kind of gets swept to the side, which is going to propel our story forward. Everything is so animatic. It's so fun. And you put a lot of work into this, and having your background with screenwriting. Have you thought that this eventually, if I'm done with it as a trade and like I finish the story, this would be a great animated show? Or even if I really want to see an action figure. I'm going to tell you that right now. I really want to see an armored action figure that either comes in pieces or like a shield replica. I hope that this gets made.
Can you cut this piece of our interview and send it straight to like Super 7 or something? I handed the owner I don't know if you know Super 7 toys. I do. At San Diego Comic-Con, I met what's his name? I forget his last name. Brian. I'll forget. But I handed him a copy of Armored, saying maybe someday you'll make toys out of this book. So fingers crossed. I think my first and foremost goal was, like, I wanted this to just be a comic that people read and enjoyed. I never really thought that far ahead. I have tons of stories that are strictly for screenwriting. Like, I'm writing a zombie movie right now that is not meant for comics. It is strictly for movies, and Armored was always intended as a comic. So with that said, though, if a producer or a studio were to pick it up and make a show out of it, I would love it, just for the fact that means more people are going to pick up the book. That's what I want. I want, if I can drive more people to reading this comic, that's my goal.
Definitely.
So, like, a TV show would be really cool, but I would love if I could tell a few more stories in this series before it became a TV show, so they have material to work off of. That would be even better. But yeah, I think it would be cool. I agree with you. We need a toy. We need like Andy in armor with like Sir William, attachable Sir William that floats behind him.
I am all for this, because I think when I was reading it a couple nights ago, I think I was watching old YouTube videos of Dragon's Lair, because I like watching the whole story. I can never beat it because I was never fast enough to do it. I was like, oh, when that character dies, I'm like, this is kind of Sir William. When he kind of puts that like talking skeleton, or you see him like fail. was like, oh, this would be a great YouTube short or like a little animated series to go with it. I'm like, man, this would be really cool if they did that. But the toy, Super 7, or if anyone knows them, you want to tag them in the comments or get this to them. This comic book is going to be ripe with toy ideas, especially the way issue 5 ends.
Yeah, well, if Super 7's not interested, maybe McFarlane will take it, right?
Perfect. Hasbro, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Transformers, you're already halfway there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, and the things I have planned for the further stories, oh, it's so right, man.
All right, this is going to happen. I don't know who's listening or who can get this to them, but it's going to happen. So for everyone listening that is interested, obviously, first couple issues I know have already been out at LCS. As we were talking before, I have a couple of the issues. Where are we at timeline wise? How long is our Kickstarter going for this Wizard special edition?
Okay, so yeah, issue 5 hits comic shops December 18th. So we're like, what is that? Like a couple weeks away now, or 3 weeks away?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
About
yeah.
2.
So that's that's the final issue of this arc, and like we've talked about, it is a big cliffhanger. It's a cliffhanger in the sense that it opens up a new story. The whole point of that for 5th issue was, let's close off Andy's story. Let's make sure Andy's story with this new family gets resolved, and let's start a new story for him. And so that's where we're at. Issue 5 wraps up that story and starts a new one. That comes out December 18th. And then you said this will be dropping, what, today is Wednesday, on Wednesday?
Yep. So this will be dropping December 4th for everyone listening on December 4th.
Okay, wow. Okay, so if you're listening December 5th, the Armored Half is in pre-launch stage right now, but December 6th, it will be fully launched. So we are looking for people to come by and back it. This will probably be a short Kickstarter. It'll probably be up for 2 weeks. There's only going to be 500 copies made. It'll never be in stores. Unless some store decides to buy, I don't know, 10 copies or something, but it's not something you get for distribution. So it's very limited. I'll probably have some left over for my signings wherever I am. But yeah, the best way to get it is to get it through the Kickstarter, get it as quick as you can, we just hope people support it, because like we've put Adam and Ishmael and I and Michael, we've put a lot of time into this book, and it really is a passion project. Like we are expecting nothing out of it than to just get it into people's hands, and we hope a lot of people it resonates for them. Old Wizard fans and just new Armored fans should check it out for sure.
Definitely. So for everyone listening, we will have this posted on YouTube and on our Instagram. We'll have the link available in the comments, so follow it, sign up for the pre-launch. If you're listening to this or watching this and it's a little bit ahead, even better, that link should take you right to the Kickstarter page. Follow it, back it. If you have not started reading Armored, I'm assuming we go to clover.com, or you could still check with your local LCS, wherever you get your comic books. I'm assuming it's easy to find.
Yeah, go to your LCS. They can still order issue 1 through Lunar, and if there's enough back orders through Diamond, we'll just transfer some from Lunar over to Diamond. It's just issue 4 that might get difficult to find right now, but the whole series will be up on Comixology probably in the next few weeks. I shouldn't say the whole series. At least issue 1 should be up in the next few weeks. And I always tell people, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I'd like to just try issue 1, see if I like it, message me on social media. Instagram at Mike Schwartz Writes, or X at the Mike Schwartz, or Blue Sky at the Mike Schwartz, or Mike Schwartz Writes. I can't remember. Just find Mike Schwartz, and I'll send you a PDF of issue 1. I just want people to check it out. So yeah, I offer that to anybody that's take the time to find me and to message me. Absolutely.
Definitely. And as I can tell you guys, we obviously had him back as a returning guest. We love this series. That is why I have every issue. I always get it from my LCS. This is a great project. I cannot wait for the Wizard half. We can't wait to have you back, and we keep talking about Armored and all the other products you have coming out. Michael, thank you for coming back on. Everyone, go follow him, Michael Schwartz. You can find him on, as he just said, pretty much any social media. Look out for this Kickstarter. Subscribe. You will not be disappointed. Again, we look forward to having you back. Everyone listening, after you're done following him, like this post, like the show, follow us for more interviews like this. And everyone listening, we hope you had fun and have a good night.
Thanks so much, Ryan.